Hi everyone, welcome back. Yeah, it's been about a month, I think. It's amazing how fast time goes by. It was a busy month. We had sun and fun, saw some of you there. That was exciting, and some of our favorite vendors as well. And the weather was good for sun and fun this year, so that was a lot of fun. We managed to get down there for a day, and it was fun. Hopefully everybody else had a lot of fun. Then between pre-buys and DAR work this month, it's just been busy. But I did manage to get a lot done I want to share with you. Carol's reaction when she comes out to the shop is, it got big. So yes, I think since the last time we showed it to you, the tailcone has been attached. And this is all completely riveted together now. And if you come and we'll look at the inside, as of yesterday evening, I managed to get all the internal panels done, all the closeout panels, all the nut plates are on. So the inside's basically finished here structurally, and I was able to repurpose the jig that I used for the helicopter, the Hummingbird helicopter, and I've managed to sit it on here. It's getting heavy, so I'm trying to figure out how we're going to work on it. It does get a little hard now to work on it like this. It'd be nice to rotate it. And started thinking about that and looking around, and it turns out Bogart Aviation has a really nice rotisserie, and they tell me it'll work for the RV10, so we ordered one. So maybe by our next video we'll have this in the rotisserie. It certainly will make it a lot easier to work on some of this stuff, because the next chapters now have me routing brake lines and fuel lines and the control system, and I think it would be much easier if I had it facing me. So we're going to give that a shot. And all the soundproofing went in underneath the floors. As the floors are all pop riveted in. There's a lot of work on the inside of this RV10. And I know some people have made comments, boy, you go so fast. Well, I think it's about working efficiently, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks, especially on doing nut plates. There's just a lot of nut plates, as you can appreciate, inside this, because there's a lot of removable panels. For inspection purposes and close out and just covering up things. So I hate doing those nut plates, and you got to look for a way to efficiently do them. So we're going to walk into the shop here in a bit, and I'll show you a couple of tricks that I've learned. Can't think of a whole lot more here. One of the other things I will tell you, try and do as much as you can before you put covers on. Like back here, I've installed an external power receptacle. You can see I got a little cover for it right here on the front side of the baggage compartment. That's always worked really well for me. I've done all the RV10s the same way. I like having the external power receptacle away from the propeller. So, but it's nice just to be able to set your power supply here, plug this in as we're configuring all the avionics, updating databases, etc. It makes it very, very convenient. Also, let's see, some of the other things I did while this top skin is off back here is the ADAHRS mount is installed right here. Not permanently, because we've got to rivet the top skin on, but it is drilled. It's a lot easier to do this way. And the ADAHRS mount, which is kind of hard for Carol to see there, but it's on that side, or not the ADAHRS mount, I'm sorry, the ELT mount has been installed. Static line is routed, and we're getting ready. You know, the next few chapters will be the control system, brakes and fuel lines, and then we work on the cabin top and doors. That's probably the one part of the RV10 that I hate the most. I hate the fiberglass stuff. So if we go up here, look, don't forget, whoops, sorry about that, when you're doing your firewall, seal up all the areas where it might, leak gases like carbon monoxide from the firewall. You can probably get it online anywhere. Spruce is convenient for us. There's 3M fire barrier tape. I think Carol will put the part number in the video for you, but that's what I used.
It's caulk, not tape, right?
Caulk, yes, caulk, sorry. And just goes into a regular caulking gun. And then a couple of other things. I think I might have mentioned the tunnel access cover. You have to come around here and see that. I may have mentioned that the last time we did this. I don't remember, but it is worth putting the tunnel access cover in. You really just need to do it on one side. It makes it much easier to get access to the fuel filter, for the annual cleaning of that, and if you ever have to replace the fuel pump, etc., rather than having to take off the whole tunnel center section.
And we discussed that we don't put insulation on the floor of the tunnel where the fuel filter is.
Yeah, that's correct. That way when the fuel filter drips, when you take it out, you just don't get the insulation all wet with fuel, and you have a hard time getting that smell out of there. So we do insulate the top of the tunnel and the sides, but not the floor on the forward side of the tunnel, just because of what she mentioned on cleaning the fuel filter. If you look back here, I may have mentioned these. These are the Air Ward from Don there, Air Ward, Don Ward, to inspect and be able to replace the bolt in the landing gear step here, not the landing gear, just your step to get in. What I like about this is it's one, I'm leaving this step off until I get finished painting. This step always gets in the way when you're trying to paint, and invariably I'll get a run. So it makes that a little bit more convenient. Then if you ever have to replace that bolt, you can get to those a lot easier. And you can also inspect down in there. One of the other things I will mention, if you look here, you can see, let me pull this cover up if I can. Don't forget to run some ducting for your wires. So I ran 4 1-inch ducts, one in the center section here, and then one down the side. You can actually see where the one down the side here comes through underneath the baggage compartment. So make sure you run enough ducting or run your wires ahead of time. I find it easier to put ducting in because invariably over time we change things. And whether it's electronics or we're going to add ignition systems, we need to run wire. You can see here I've run a heavy-duty 14-gauge wire all the way back for the SureFly electronic ignition system. This will connect directly to the battery. And I think that's about it for this. And so anyway, we're moving ahead. Why don't we go in the shop? I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on doing all these bazillion nut plates you got to do. All right, let me just share a few tips and tricks on getting all these nut plates done. A couple things, you know, they're very labor intensive on the nut plates. Most of the places where you're putting nut plates, actually all the places that I can think of, you're going to end up having a dimpled or countersunk rivet to hold the nut plate in place. So a lot of extra work there. One of the things I have found easiest to do is to have your dimpler set up. One of the things that took me a while to figure out, just put a screw in the back hole back here. And now I can just kind of swing this thing out of the way. And I'm going to show you why here in a second. See this back riveting plate? We're going to make a lot of use of that and this back riveting plate as well. But before we can get to that point, we end up doing a lot of dimpling. So you're going to end up dimpling all your pieces out there with all the nut plates that go on them. And so you can just run it through the dimpler here very quickly. Now you got to pay attention to a couple of things when you're doing this with these countersunk nut plates. So when you have a countersunk nut plate, such as the K11008, you can see how that goes over a countersunk hole. These are typically used for number 8, sometimes number 10 screws, but mostly inside the cockpit and cabin there, they're all number 8 screws. So you can see when you dimple that, you got to dimple the center section with a big one for a number 8 screw. Now, a couple of tricks I will tell you here. For the number 8 screws, if you look in the instructions and read them, you're going to match drill all your holes between the 2 pieces for a number 19 drill bit. One of the things I've found over time is go ahead and match drill them with number 19. But if you put a number 19 into a number 8 dimple die, they tend to crack over time. So I will use a number 18 drill bit, which is the next size bigger, and open up that hole just a little. You'll see that it actually fits into the dimple much easier. Okay, otherwise it's a tight fit, and it's a bigger hole, so you can end up with cracks there. So I'd recommend drilling them out to number 18. And then go ahead and dimple the big one. So just go ahead and put your big number 6 dimple in your dimpler. And let's see if I can get to that here without wasting a bunch of time. So here's our number 8, not a number 6 dimple. Oh, sorry, number 8 dimple. Okay. And you can see we're just going to run this through our dimple machine like yay. Okay. Now, one of the things you'll notice is with the number 8 dimple die, it's very big, and I drew a line on this, and I've taken some pictures that will show you some stills. You can see that line goes right over the dimple for the 3/32 rivet that you're going to put in to hold the nut plate in place. So what you want to do first is go ahead and dimple all the number 8s. Then you're going to come back and dimple the 3/32 rivets. Now, one of the tricks I do here is you're going to have to sacrifice a female dimple die. You can see I've ground one side flat. Okay? That way, when you go to dimple here, it doesn't mush the number 8 dimple in the center that you put in. If you use a full-size female die, you can see right there, it's going to go over.
Your hand is in the way.
Okay, right there. It actually ends up going over top and actually mushing down part of the center section.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to sacrifice a die, and then what I do is just put that up in. I only do one side and put it up inside here, and we'll run the dimples all the way one way, then turn the piece around, or turn your die around to catch the other side. And that goes very quickly, and it saves you from ruining those. Now, one of the other things you got to do, if you take a look here, when you get these nut plates, they are not dimpled on the legs. And you can see we've dimpled here. Sometimes you'll machine countersink if the material is thick enough and you won't have to dimple the nut plate. But if you've dimpled the material, then you really want to dimple the nut plate. I've taken a close-up picture. We'll show you here. Otherwise, the nut plate sits really high. So again, what you're going to do is use your half a die to be able to dimple these. If you try and use a full die, it just doesn't work very well. So again, use the half a die, and this goes pretty quickly, and just do them by hand. What I'll do is this. Again, this is about working efficiently. So what I'll do is put this female die up on top. And to keep it in place, sometimes what I'll do is take a piece of blue painter's tape. I use a lot of this stuff. See how this kind of spins easily? All right. A little piece of tape there will keep it from spinning, so I know where the flat side is all the time. Then it's just a matter of, with the male die on the bottom, holding your nut plate, and then dimpling this side of it with the cut down side of the die there against the center. So you can see as we come right down on it, then it makes it very easy to dimple. Now, one of the other things you have to pay attention to, if you can look very closely, and I think I took a close-up picture, dimpling kind of bends those legs a little bit. So you end up taking a pair of pliers, and you can do this by hand, it's not that hard to do, and I'll straighten that leg out so it lays flat against the material that you're putting the dimple, the nut plate on. If you don't bend them back, what happens with the legs bent down, and I'm going to exaggerate this here, but you'll have one side clecoed, and then when you rivet the other side, it ends up putting the nut plate up at an angle. So if you want to straighten out the leg so it lays flat. So you can see I was kind of talking about working efficiently. If you just set up a production line for yourself, because you'll spend a couple hours just doing these nut plates, and it's easy just to grab a bag full of them, count how many you need, get the dimples done on the nut plate, then dimple your material. And then once you've got all that done, it's very easy to back rivet these in place. I like back riveting as opposed to trying to do a bucking bar. It just goes faster and it's more consistent. So what we're going to do here is on the side of the, this is your material that you're using out there. We're going to load up our rivets. And usually you'll have a whole string of these along the piece of material that you're doing. And then 3M removable tape works really nice. I'll just take little pieces. You hold those rivets in place like so. Okay, now when I turn it over, they don't fall. Now all I got to do is set this down on the back rivet plate. So if you look, I can get into some of these here, but sometimes you got a long piece with a flange on it, like I'm simulating here. A lot of the closeout pieces look like this with a flange across the bottom, and you've got your nut plates like this. So it's kind of hard to back rivet like this. So what you want to do is find yourself, take one of your other bucking bars here, set it up tall, and then you'll be able to get anything you want in there. So now all you do is you take your nut plate. This one is not countersunk. In some places, we don't have a center countersunk hole, so you use the K1000-8, okay, -08. And then in the center one there, that's countersunk, you can see we use a K11000-08. So that one's countersunk. So you can load these up. Typically, you got to load them up one at a time or they're going to bounce off. And then it's very easy here. We just take the rivet gun for back riveting. Okay. And we're going to put on some air protection here. Let me grab my air protection. I just hold it like this and hit it a few times. Voila, we're done. It goes very quickly doing that. You can get a whole string of them done. You can see what you want to do is not put all the nut plates on at the same time or they just bounce off. Put each one on. Don't forget to put the nut plate on or you're going to end up drilling out those rivets. Ask me how I know that. So you get going too fast, not pay attention, and you just start pounding rivets. Make sure you put the nut plate on there. So hopefully that helps, and then you can see when you're done, this tape peels off, and these are nice and flush. Can't catch a fingernail, they're perfect. So there's your tip for the month. Help you when you get to all these nut plates. Hey, real quick, a couple of closing comments. So next week, Wednesday, not this coming week, but on, I think it's the 23rd, is the Alaska presentation I'll be doing at 8 p.m. Eastern for the EAA. It's a webinar. I know I've heard from quite a few of you actually that are going to Alaska this summer. So we got our new book out in time. And for those of you that perhaps are dreaming about it someday, you might want to watch the webinar. I look forward to doing those. They're fun. And speaking of fun things, every once in a while I do a Zoom call for some of the EAA chapters around the country. And most recently I had the opportunity to do one for chapter 27 up in Connecticut. So that's James Culvers is the president there. And this is the lowest numbered mug I have, 27. I think it's amazing. I know our local chapter here is 1,568. So for those of you who maybe you already know, that's the number of the chapter when it started. So number 27, way out in Connecticut, it's really an early chapter. It was a real honor to talk to these guys. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon again.